Now, our next guest spent 650 days in one of Asia's most notorious prisons. The Australian economist Sean Turnell was in Myanmar advising the democratically elected leader when she was overthrown by a military coup in February of last year. He's written about his experience, which included rats, scorpions and multiple bouts of COVID. He's now back on the home soil after being released from prison 2 weeks ago. He joins us now from Sydney. Hello to you. Good morning, good afternoon where you are. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great now, okay? I wasn't feeling good before when I was there in Myanmar in a cell with all those animals that you mentioned, but I'm feeling good now, back in Sydney, Australia.
Tell us what happened.
Well, I was arrested back in February 2021, a couple of days after the coup in which Aung San Suu Kyi was taken into custody. I was taken into custody 5 days later, put in prison, put on a sham trial, and ultimately sentenced for 3 years, and then released 2 weeks ago, today. Not today, a little bit more than that. Yeah, so just so pleased to be home.
What were the conditions like? Talk to us about the conditions you were kept in.
The conditions were terrible. They were the conditions in which normal Burmese people can expect. I think when I was first arrested, I expected something a little bit different. That didn't turn out to be the case, and I was treated more or less the same as everyone else, all the other prisoners. And the insects and so on that you described would come into the cell every day. It was exceedingly hot, of course. The food was terrible, and I got sick multiple times, and I got COVID 4 times while I was there. So it was not a good experience at all. There were various times when I had nothing to read and nothing to sort of stimulate my mind, so I had to do a lot of pacing of cells and things like that. But yeah, eventually got through it, of course. But yeah, it was not a good 650 days.
You spent something like 2 months in what's called the box. I mean, can you bear to tell us about that?
I can, and it was probably the worst time, that first 2 months, where I was completely isolated from everyone, including the Australian Embassy. There was no legal basis that I was told as to why I was arrested. My captors never identified themselves, and this thing that I called the box was like the insides of a 20-foot container, shipping container, one of those 20-foot equivalent units that had a concrete floor and wood veneer panelling walls. Nothing in it except for a metal chair placed in the very centre of the room, bolted to the concrete floor, to which there were attached lengths of chains and ankle and wrist manacles, to which I would be attached various times during the interrogation. And it was that period, of course, where I was not allowed any sort of reading material or anything like that. And so all I had to do was really just pace up and down and remember things and come up with stories and invent games, things like that, just to, keep my mind occupied and keep the panic at bay.
What was the embassy doing to get you out?
Oh, I was doing a lot of stuff. In fact, the embassy, in coalition with my wife and other friends, put on an extraordinary amount of activity to try and get me out. It took a long time, ultimately, but that was due to the Myanmar side, not the Australian side. So, and the embassy was actually very good at supplying me with food, and ultimately I was able to receive books and things like that, which, compensated for some of the treatment earlier. So, yeah, they were extremely active. And I know they were in coalition with a lot of other governments, including that of the UK, the United States, Vietnam, Singapore, and some others. So I think it was a broad international coalition that helped secure my release.
Did you fear at times that you were losing your mind?
I didn't really fear that. I was more worried, I think, about the physical conditions, which were pretty dire. And Myanmar's the sort of place where you don't want to get sick, and you certainly don't want to get sick in a Myanmar prison. So I think I was more concerned about catching something or just meeting with an accident, in facilities that were, not really conducive to survival, frankly, in the long term. So I think the physical things were more important. Once the books arrived, I was able to, I think, rally mentally. Plus, I was able to be in touch with my wife at various times as well, and that really lifted my spirits.
How much did you regret going to help Aung San Suu Kyi?
Oh, I didn't regret it at all. I regretted being arrested, but I didn't regret that. For a long time, I've been associated with people in Myanmar's democracy movement, and I'm, quite committed on that front. So I didn't regret doing that. I certainly regret what's happened to Myanmar and the military takeover and what subsequently happened. But what happened to me, of course, is being experienced by thousands of others in Myanmar, and of course, many worse things being done to them as well. So, so no real regrets. And I guess I'm just motivated now in the hope that something better will come to Myanmar's way before too long.
How is she?
She's good. She's very strong. Her conditions are also not very good. I think the military dictator, Min Aung Hlaing, has made a number of comments to the effect that, she's in a home-like building, I think was the expression that he used. Well, that's just completely not true. She's held in what I'm calling a little hut sort of structure. It has no facilities beyond a very simple bathroom and a bed, but it doesn't have a TV. It's not air-conditioned. It doesn't have running water except for some stuff in the bathroom, but it's not a good facility at all, and she has to draw on those resources that she's drawn on for 20 more years to stay okay. But but look, she's in wonderful spirits, and she's a great help to everyone else. I saw her once a week when we were on trial together, and her biggest concern was to keep our spirits up. She was very concerned, for instance, at asserting and helping us in thinking that, or in understanding rather, that this court process was nothing but a sham, and we shouldn't take on board any feelings of guilt and so on. We'd done nothing wrong, and that we just needed to be strong and to stand by the truth and so on. So she was not only strong and serene as we've come to know her, but she was so supportive of other people who were captives as well.
If she were ever to lead Myanmar again, would you go back to work for her?
I would work for her outside Myanmar. I think I've had my stint in Myanmar itself. I think I would be worried about my own safety in Myanmar, but I would certainly work for her. I would have no problem at all on that front.
And just before I let you go, tell me the first thing you did when you landed back home and you knew that you were safe.
I had fish and chips and a glass of red wine with my wife on Sydney Harbour.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. All's well that ends well. It's good of you to take the time to join us. I'm glad you're home safe. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kate.
Thank you.